Calling all beings. Calling all beings.
Somebody give me an amen. Tonight on Calling All Beings. Welcome everybody. We're going to talk some UFOs tonight, and we got a legit OG that we're going to speak with, one of our favorite people in the community. And before we get to that, we got to welcome my co-hosts. Starting off with the lady down below who done been there since the beginning. And her name is a study of UAPs, but we like to call her Debs. Good evening, Debs.
Hi, everybody.
How are you?
Hello, Debs.
I want to say happy holidays for those who celebrate Hanukkah. And yeah, 'tis the season.
That's what's up, man. Oh, and look who just got in the joint. There he is right there, the co-creator, Cab, Money Nathan.
He can't hear you.
He can't hear me. He can't. Come on, Nathan, put in your earbuds. Will you, mate? And Chris is like, oh, DJ's not too bad. He's better than my American. All right. My other co-host right here to my left is from the British city of Boston. And she is none other than Boston Beer.
Hi. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
She's a multi-tool player, Nathan. She loves to do true crime. She can do cases, UFOs. She loves Bigfoot. She's totally down, man. Good evening. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Good. Sorry for the technical issues. I got rid of Windows and installed Linux on my computer, which I have not had a lot of experience with. I used it with Zoom recently. Worked great. Went to use it with StreamYard. It had some issues, so we got it worked out. It's all good now.
Well, you sound great, if that helps.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Good to be here.
Looks good, too. Would you like to talk a little bit about our guest coming up here?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So Christopher Sharp, I think he's a man that really requires very little introduction because he is the head of the Liberation Times, which has been steadfastly, doggedly pursuing the UFO topic for many years now. I was doing kind of a sanity check the other day and how many years we've been doing podcasts, and it's an incredible number of years have blown by. I don't know how that happened, DJ, but they did. I've got the gray hairs to prove it, more gray hairs than when we started for sure. But that entire time, and even longer than that, Chris has been hard at work in covering this issue and being one of the biggest mouthpieces and biggest advocates for this kind of transparency, the UFO transparency. He's got some amazing sources. He's always seemingly on the cutting edge of what is about to be happening in the UFO conversation. I think that his the history bears that out, that his reporting has been pretty much spot on for most of the time. And he's a friend of the show. He's a great guy. Really, really happy to have him with us. Really honored that he's with us, particularly considering that it's super late for him. And I know he's got a young family. So really happy to have him join us this evening.
Party people, put those hands together for Christopher UK Sharp. Can I get a amen for Chris Sharp?
What's up,
Good
Chris?
evening, Christopher.
Hi there. It's great to be on the show again with the cool beans. You know, it's it's a true honor. It's a true honor. I can't wait to start talking about canal boats, the weather.
We can talk canal boats. Yeah,
my favorite brand is. We're gonna have a great conversation.
I love it.
Something how we're gonna talk about all that. We're gonna cover it all. So for anyone watching,
to be honest with you, Chris, you're probably the most knowledgeable Bigfoot guest we've had on. So with that, talk about your latest No, I'm just kidding. All right. So Chris is like, I'll leave that to Daniel Barnett. Okay. Chris, in terms of experiences, I don't know what you'll talk about. I know that there are people that you know that you're very close to that have had some experiences. Is that why this topic is so important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. My mum had an experience. She was chased by a triangular craft over Berkshire in, I think, the 1970s. And then she was watching TV, terrestrial TV at the time, the regional TV, Meridian TV,
Mhm.
which is when the TV waves are hijacked by Ashtar Command. Growing up, you always thought, oh, that's a load of BS, that didn't really happen. And then when YouTube became a thing, like someone found the old footage, it was like, gosh, my mum was telling the truth. Like there was an Ashtar Command, like hoax or whatever, and no one ever found out who it was. So it had that growing up, and my brothers had experiences, my cousins had experiences, a lot of my family members, and I'm not one of those people who, because I realize life is very, very subjective. I have primary reading epilepsy. Not many people in the world knows what that's like. So it's subjective to me, but it's very, very real. I have a lot of people who come up to me who I trust that says they've had experiences in regards to UAP. So who am I to judge them? And in my opinion, many of them are very, very good people who I put a lot of weight behind.
And so but like, to keep you engaged for this long, this is pretty serious stuff. Like, for you to be engaged, is it just from your mom, or is there some additional things that are sort of driving you?
I think that the world is in a very, very perilous situation.
Mm-hmm.
We now have weapons that can destroy the world many times over. And if what people are saying is true, then reverse engineering UAP tech makes that an even more perilous situation. And I just see society dividing right now so much. And I want a great future for my son, my daughter. And I think that if we could manage just to team up with some of the people some of the nations that may be seen as adversaries, and come together to work out what's going on, what we all know, and basically bring humanity together, say that actually we're not alone. Let's try to utilize some of the tech we may have reverse engineered to make the world a better place, and let's just like face this head on, whether it's a good or bad thing. Let's find out. Let's get some answers.
So it's really, you're kind of driven by what the future, how the future, our prospects for a continued civilized society could be improved by the revelation of this, what we know.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I'm always someone who's just always dreaming of a better tomorrow, really, and that's always kind of been where I come at this from. And I just think it's the most important story in the world right now.
Nathan, how do you follow that, bro?
I mean, yeah, amen to that. So Chris, I completely agree with you, and I feel like we live in a time where the narrative, the societal narrative, is really decohering, right? So we don't have a time where there are a lot of folks who are on the same page, who kind of agree with the same way the world should run, or even the way the world actually is, the state of reality as it is right now. There seems to be a lot of disagreement in that. And I agree with you. This topic has the potential to, I think, rewrite that narrative, unify the people, and kind of shine a light on some of the darker aspects of state secrecy, which I think has sort of loomed over many of our societies for the last many decades. And so your reporting, kind of being an advocate for that transparency is so hugely important. So I want to thank you for that. Your recent piece, that just came out, I want to get your kind of your vibe check on this, as the kids say. I don't know if they do say that, but I think they do. The vibe check on where we are kind of on the legislative front. I mean, it seems like we're really hit a wall. The UAPDA doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. We do have some members of Congress that still seem interested, but from a macroscopic level, it feels like it's kind of in the hands of the executive at this point to try to do something. So what's your take on that? Are we going to see any real movement in 2026? Do you think? Is there going to be maybe a strategic shift in kind of the way the advocates are pursuing the topic and trying to put pressure on the legislature?
Yeah, really good question. So I hope so. I really, I can't find anyone with any real insight at the moment in terms of the administration's thinking. I do know that some figures within the administration had been talking with advocates in late 2024, promising them the world, basically saying, "Yep, we're going to make this priority." Many advocates were expecting that from day one there was going to be some kind of UAP position created within the National Security Council or somewhere else within the administration, so that this could be handled. And all those promises that it would be prioritized at one time just never amounted to anything for some reason. And at the moment, it looks pretty bad. Going back 3 or 4 years, you had the House Intelligence Committee and the Senate Intelligence Committee, both very, very engaged in this topic. You had the House Intelligence Committee hold the first UAP public hearing over 50 years. You had the Senate side and the House supporting, coming up with a UAP office within the DoD. And you had all these great efforts, and it felt like we were really, really pushing for some truth and pushing on these programs, alleged legacy programs. And now we find ourselves in a situation whereby the UAP Disclosure Act, supported by Senators Rounds and Schumer, who at the time was the majority leader of the Senate, it seems to have failed to be fully implemented for a third year in a row. Now, if the Senate Majority Leader and Chuck Schumer couldn't even get this thing over the line when he was Majority Leader, what hope do we have now that he's not Majority Leader anymore? And there just doesn't seem to be the same level of interest within the House and Senate Armed Services or Intelligence Committees anymore. Rubio's gone silent on it, even though now he's in a great position to find out what's going on. Kirsten Gillibrand's gone completely silent as well. Senator Rounds didn't even appear to realize that the UAP Disclosure Act wasn't even included in the Senate's version of the National Defense Authorization Act. It really doesn't seem to feel that this is a priority anymore, despite the best efforts of some fantastic representatives in the House who are part of the Oversight Committee, who are really, really pushing on this, from both the Democratic and both the Republican side. At the end of the day, they don't really have the power when it comes to creating the legislation that could prise this whole thing open in regards to the National Defense Authorization Act and the Intelligence Authorization Act, which is most of the time becomes part of the National Defense Authorization Act. So currently, I mean, I don't really know what to expect. We've got Michael Schellenberger saying that an advisor to Rubio has said that there's going to be a huge disclosure on the way. I don't know who that source was, but if he was an advisor to Senator Rubio and he is telling the truth, well, perhaps something is going to happen next year, but it's probably being hidden away by people who do talk, and they want to keep this locked up and get it ready. But I don't know. That's just only conjecture from my side, though. So my current feeling is it doesn't look very good.
Can I make a hypothesis, Chris?
Sure.
Let's say, this is hypothetical, of course, that there was a sort of dead person who had an island that had like young girls on it, and it turns out that there was a lot of influential people in business and politics and sports and otherwise that had traveled to that island and had done whatever the hell they did. And that person may currently be able to release information, but might want to hold that back, that if something were released that would embarrass that person, they could break the glass and remove this emergency object and then possibly use that to stifle the attention on a particular photo or anything that might come out. So do you think that's possible?
DJ, are you saying they might be holding a Trump card?
No, don't. No, I am not saying that. I would never say that because it's possible that I could work for somebody like that. So no, I would not say that. But but you get what I'm saying, you know, so that could be a reason why that there hasn't been movement, because if you were the holder of that information and you felt like there was something that could be really embarrassing and you would want to be able to squash that information, well, what could be better than this?
Yeah, I mean, that could be something you can throw out there. You could invade Venezuela as well, or just do some other crazy thing. We don't know. It could be one of a number of options. But all I would say is that if the president did disclose that UAPs are real and they're non-human in origin, and look, this is the current situation, all of a sudden, those people who are on the sidelines, you know, the mainstream media, the press pool that ask questions every day from the White House spokesperson, all these people, they now know that this is fair game and that there is actually something to this. It doesn't stop them. It doesn't stop. This is that's all they're going to ever be asked about. All of a sudden, this topic becomes very, very real. And it becomes something that they're never stopped up. And the questions will come very, very quickly as well. And some of the questions will be very, very uncomfortable. You know, you imagine like your Sunday talk shows and stuff like that. UAP never really features at the moment.
Right.
Well, imagine a situation all of a sudden that there is very, very good evidence to present. There's been this big announcement. And you know, that's going to be on the agenda of everyone. It will never stop being talking about. So whatever other priorities the White House had are going to be completely, you know, buried over by the UAP stuff. So that's what would happen. And there'll be some very, very uncomfortable questions as well as they do their research into this in terms of lives destroyed, potential lives being taken, incursions over military installations, nuclear installations. There'll be some very, very uncomfortable conversations. And also, you know, importantly, what technology has been reverse engineered in regards to the retrieved materials, which is very, very tightly classified.
Man, this is, I could totally, I mean, it's like with Chris, like you can go from one question to one question to the next and next and next. So I'm going to shut up so Debs and then Boston Bia can get in there.
So let's just throw out a name of a documentary, Age of Disclosure. We were watching it so that we could talk about it. And one of the things that came up was something Lou mentioned, Lou Elizondo, about something happening. And you've sort of indicated it could be more like a political announcement. But do you think that he was perhaps indicating anything beyond a political announcement that might make this topic so very important to people?
I mean, I can only guess based on what I'm hearing at the moment. And, you know, remember, you know, I can have my opinion in certain situations, but when it comes to my reporting, a lot of the time it's just based on sources that I put a large amount of trust on, and it's got to be more than one source, and I have to make a decision on whether it is credible information based on the background of the sources involved, and how I see the information connecting to other things. And I mean, I think we agree, DJ. We agree that I don't feel like the United States or any other nations have mastered UAP technology or have I haven't seen incredible information yet that they've got a tic tac or anything like that. However, information that is kind of reaching me is that there is some limited technology that has been developed from these things, which may include anti-gravitic technology. So we're not talking, you know, it advances these potential non-human craft, but we are talking very advanced craft that according to Michael Livelsberger, the Green Beret who killed himself at the Trump Hotel at the beginning of the year, who also seems like a very, very credible person as well, by the way. I mean, he entered that reality show with Tim Kennedy in terms of special forces where they pissed each other off, and he was a top-tier operator.
Yeah.
A very, very serious person. For him to kind of make the allegations that the drones seen over New Jersey were actually Chinese in origin and that they'd been coming off submarines and that they had an unlimited payload, I mean, that really caught my interest. And then the Department of War classifies that manifesto with that in. It raises questions. And the Department of War will not give any answer at all as to why they classified that document, instead of referring journalists to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. So we're not getting any answers at all. And the sources that I have been speaking to have basically said that what's been happening is that the craft that have been seen off the East Coast and training ranges are a mixture of Chinese and non-human craft, and that they've been fouling the ranges, ISR, testing defenses, and just kind of like been conducting power plays. And they felt emboldened for some reason to come more inland to areas such as Maryland, New Jersey, and other surrounding areas. And they've been targeting one particular base, which I cannot name, but someone had a very, very good theory about what it could be. But, you know, there are so many interesting bases around there. You know, let's look at Pax River, you know, the naval base. That's a really interesting one. If we're looking at Salvatore Payas and his patents, where was he based at the time? He was based at Pax River. And it's also come out from Louis Zondo as well that there was going to be a transfer of materials between Lockheed Martin and Bigelow Aerospace. And Bigelow had, and the transfer was going to take place at a number of locations, including a hangar built at Pax River.
Mm-hmm.
Lockheed Martin Skunk Works is based at Pax River as well. So I think that's a really, really interesting place. And I think that if there was exotic material operating from there, which is of interest to the Chinese, or let's say a non-human adversary potentially, I think that would become a prime target, I think. And I think the fear is that if these things have unlimited payload, and we've seen they can't be taken down as well by jamming, God knows if they've used kinetic force. If they can't be taken down, they have an unlimited payload. You can just, you know, that renders many. What are the consequences in terms of nuclear doctrine and first strike capabilities when you've got that kind of technology?
If we believe
I think I believe that is a genuine. I believe that is a genuine fear, and it does really seem to me that there are factions of non-human intelligences that are kind of like allied with different nations and pissing them off against each other, kind of what Tom DeLonge was talking about. That's my feeling. That's purely opinion. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment, you know. But when it comes to the allegations, these are from sources that I put great weight into, you know, and I have to use my judgment whether I want to publish this stuff or not. And I thought a great deal about this because I was told as well that publishing this information could make me a target and put a bullseye on me. But I felt like, look, it's not just one person. You've got the Livelsberger stuff as well, the Department of War classifying this stuff. And also, like, I've been reporting on the New Jersey events more than anyone, probably, looking at the FOIA documents and stuff like that from the Coast Guard. I know that a lot of them were actually kind of like potentially misidentifications of aircraft flying in and out of JFK Airport. But I'd like to highlight in terms of my reporting as well, it's been reported by myself based on documents leaked from Lang Air Force Base that the drones couldn't be detected. However, I would also say that sometimes it's the other way as well. Sometimes the drones are detected, their frequencies can be detected, but not all the time can they be seen and actually kind of like tracked, but they could be detected in terms of the frequencies. And the Belgian defense minister, when these things were over Belgium, he actually alluded to the frequencies. They kept on changing, so they couldn't ever jam them because the frequencies kept on changing. I think that's really, really important to highlight because they are picked up a lot of the time, but not always seen. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent there. There's so much nuance behind this, I feel.
Yeah, we could really dig in, but if I do, we won't get Boston Bia in there. And she's going to tell you how they say sources with a Boston accent. How do you say it, Bia?
Sauces.
Yeah, say go do a sentence with it. Gotta protect my sauce.
Yes. Yeah. Tell me about your sauces, DJ. So I guess my question is, do you think the US is leading the
reverse
like
engineering? Is that
yeah.
what we were talking about today?
Yes. Like, I guess, like, do you think other countries, like, obviously you're from England, right? Do you think other countries are doing studies on this and looking into this as much as the US is?
Yeah. I believe that Russia and China have been looking into this. And I feel that there's a real fear that China has the edge now when it comes to reverse engineering. And look, if you can kind of master UAP technology, because look, these things seem to know where nuclear weapons are and all nuclear materials, they can track them, even within submarines, from my understanding. If you had that technology and that you could travel the speeds that UAP are traveling in, and you can have the weapon systems, that would render all of the nuclear deterrent that the US has, including underwater, meaningless. If you knew where they were, if you could get there faster than anyone else, it's a major concern, a major concern. I think there's a lot of fear in terms of that and how fast the Chinese are actually progressing. And also, I'd note as well, Matthew Brown spoke as what he reported in documented instances whereby it appeared that there were 2 occasions where Russian intelligence ships over the Kamchatka Peninsula in the Pacific and also in the Atlantic had been rendezvousing with triangular craft just hovering, and then they just instantly kind of disappeared. And there was one instance of a similar incident involving a Chinese vessel. What does that say? Does that if this is true, I think it says that kind of either Russia or China might have this technology, or they're in contact with an element of non-human origin, non-human species. Sorry, and I think when it comes to the triangular craft, like you can't take it with a pinch of salt anymore. I mean, if we're to believe Timothy Phillips, the former deputy director of the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, by the way, who's supposed to be someone who's downplaying all this stuff and making fun of it, he has even admitted that there are instances of triangular craft and fiery orb kind of objects as well. So he's saying that. I mean, I think you've got to put some weight into it now. And this is, I think, where the conversation is now going. But again, just going back to kind of like what Michael Schellenberger said, unless we get the evidence to back this up, the conversation will just stay within UAP circles.
So Tets is here from Ireland. He's got a couple things, and I'll tell you this, Tets. There's folks from my high school, because there was a UFO flap or a UFO conglomeration of incidences in the 80s, and a couple of my friends saw triangular craft. One of them flying like right over the high school, basically, because she lived a couple streets over from the high school. So, but let's get a couple questions in here. Okay, so we got this one from Tet. Tets is from Ireland. So you've got to do your Irish accent tonight there, Christopher Sharp, and answer this question for Tets. I heard the Nordic are only 200 years ahead of us in tech.
I mean, that's an opinion held by many other people that I speak to. I think Halpert has put out a paper in terms of a kind of like subterranean race of human beings, potentially from an ancient cataclysm, and they escaped underground. That they're just 200 years ahead, and I think that's interesting. It's interesting, definitely, and I think it's an interesting theory. I'd also note as well that in terms of UAP, that we went from kind of like seeing sources in the 1950s and 60s and 40s and stuff, and then it kind of like they don't need to always be ahead of us. They just need to copy us. So sometimes they appear as helicopters, and now all you're seeing is drones. So we know that UAP have the ability to kind of camouflage themselves in a way, or mimic objects is a better word. One of the first kinetic actions taken against a UFO, at first, a French pilot operating with the US Air Force, or with the Army Air Force, thought it was a balloon, and then it turned into a saucer. So I think that's really interesting as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. You and I had that conversation last time we were on the phone. I told you about the woman. I think she was like in the Doral, kind of South Florida area between Miami and Fort Lauderdale. She was on a golf course. It was around the time of the New Jersey UFO drone incursions, and she was filming so she can show you the golf course, the palm trees, pan up, and she's showing an object that looks like Aguadilla. And all of us, other than Bia, because I haven't shown her that Aguadilla video from Puerto Rico, where it's just kind of shape-shifting, and it literally just transformed into what looked like the bottom of an F-16. It was so weird. But the lighting pattern did not match what I would see on the bottom of an F-16. It looked like they were trying to make it look like an F-16, but it didn't.
Yeah.
That's really weird. So then she'd pan down, and she's narrating now, and you'd see the trees. She'd pan up, and now here goes another one. Here goes another one. Look at it. Look at it. And then it would do it. I can't find that video, probably because it's been wiped off of Twitter and YouTube, but it blew my mind when I saw that. It really did. It looked like that. This one right here, Tets is saying, after the incident at the base in England, here in Ireland, I witnessed a whole fleet of UFOs and recorded a bit of it. All right, you're going to have to send that to me, Tets. We want to see what you got, man, because it's always awesome to see UFO videos. And I shared that one with you from Dan Warren, right? Where the light was panning down on the car, Chris?
Yeah, that was a really interesting one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I've developed kind of a protocol now before I can have an opinion on any videos. Like I still have interest, but I really trust Marek von Rennenkampf and his analysis. I always get his thoughts and stuff, and he's so good. And he looks at the locations of all the aircraft at the time it was over the area, and if he thinks it is anomalous, he'll also provide you with arguments that the debunkers might use. He'll force everything at every angle. But I thought that video was really, really interesting. I certainly couldn't explain it. And I do trust my judgment to a certain extent. There's been one video that I've seen actually from over the New Jersey area, which hasn't been released publicly, that, I thought was strange. And I gave it to, the person who did it gave it to Marek von Rennenkampf. And he had no kind of explanation as well as to what it was. I out of respect to the source, I can't really go into much detail unless that person chooses to release it. But, Marek certainly decided that it didn't really have any kind of like easy prosaic explanation. And Marek isn't afraid to kind of like say that, something might be prosaic, even if it offends some people, and for him to kind of like say that, it's, kind of blew my mind a bit.
Send him that one and see what he thinks. But and I think I've shared it with the Cabbies in the past, but the light, that guy gets out of the car, and I got this from Dan Warren. This person who posted this video in 2013 has only posted 2 videos, and that's it. It's not like they're trying to make a living off of the videos. And you guys know that there are some creators in the US and in Europe who have tried to make fake videos and then get views off it in the whole 9 yards. This was not that. Okay. This, when he runs away from the vehicle, when he sees it, because he sees the light coming towards it, it doesn't even really bathe the vehicle in light. The light pattern that he's filming with his phone, which, and now you got to think about your phone, you're back to like an iPhone 4 at that point, is how old this would be. I have never seen, maybe possibly a 5 or a 6. I could be wrong about that. I have never seen a light pattern that looked like that. It does not look like a light that would emanate from something like an LED or an incandescent bulb or a fluorescent bulb or anything that I'm familiar with. So it's really, really weird. You see green glowing sparkles in the light, and it kind of washes over the car to as if it's, oh, it looks like Sarah Shock and Horror might have found it. We have our new mod, by the way. We'll welcome Sarah right here. This is, if she's here, where is she? She sent it to me on text, but yes, Sarah is our new mod. She just started tonight. So party people, put your hands together. Sarah Shock and Horror. All right, I will play this video while Nathan asks. I'll get this video queued up while Nathan asks his question, and then you could avoid my inane question. So go ahead.
Yeah, so Chris, I know you're well aware of the spectrum of concern when it comes to the UFO topic. It's not just the nuts and bolts. That's primarily, I think, what your reporting is focused on, and I think for good reason. But you're also acutely aware of the other aspects of the UFO phenomena that are very personal, abductions and the psi phenomena components, the things that are harder, I think, to tangibly report on because they're a little bit less objective in some ways. There are some folks who, in the wake of the age of disclosure, I think are a little irritated that, the disclosure we're going to get from the government is really very narrow in scope. It's very, hopefully it's very focused on the nuts and bolts aspects. What are your thoughts on once that, if that does come to pass, if the government does, come forward and formally divulge that this is real, how do you see the sort of unfolding conversation from that? You mentioned earlier the reporters, and they just, that's the only thing that would dominate the airwaves, just be questions and questions and questions. How long do you think it would take to go from that announcement to then questions about experiences and beings and abductions and et cetera? How close is that conversation at hand once the quote unquote government disclosure occurs?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that people with real insight into this believe that consciousness is the most important component when it comes to this. And, you got a situation where the former vice president of Lockheed Martin Space Systems, a very, very nuts and bolts guy, very, very sane person, after his retirement, James Ryder, which is his name now deceased, he's going to kind of like spiritual conferences and consciousness and talking about consciousness and stuff. And you just have to think to yourself, what has such a person been exposed to kind of like drive them down to that kind of path? And it's my belief that some of the craft that are being retrieved are actually kind of operated through consciousness and intent. And I believe that there's a huge amount to that. And from what I understand, if there is going to be a true disclosure process, it's going to be awakening something from human consciousness. And from my understanding, something on the craft that's being retrieved holds keys to kind of allow humans to realize their full powers, their full abilities. And that also creates problems as well. So if everyone in the world, is telepathic and can kind of like remote view and stuff, what issues does that cause? You don't have any sense of privacy anymore and things like that. But apparently, from what I'm told, that's got to be part of what needs to come out. I don't know if that's due to something urgent that needs to be addressed. I mean, you hear James Lukatsky talk about it as well, in terms of, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something along the lines is that, we're going to have to kind of like realize our full abilities sooner or later. And it seems very, very daunting as well to think about, doesn't it? So yeah, I think it's a huge part of the picture. Absolutely.
I just want to follow up really quickly on what you just said there, because it reminded me, and you may remember the names of the books, but the fiction books that DeLong wrote with A.J. Hartley early on. Was it the Chasing Shadows series, or I can't remember. But there's specific mention in those books about one of the pilots who gets in contact with one of the triangular craft that are either their ARV craft or whatnot, and then there's a good bit of the narrative that kind of goes into exactly what you just talked about. That exposure to the craft kind of awakens within this pilot these nascent abilities. So it just gets me thinking. What's your take on how much tangible good intelligence was buried within those fiction stories?
I think there was a lot of good intelligence. I know some of the names of who he's spoken to, Tom DeLonge, who aren't kind of like publicly known, and these are really, really serious people. And he's come up with a lot of good stuff that I believe has aged very, very well. And I believe that, I think for that reason, I think that, certain elements of the government are very interesting experiences, because they may hold the keys in terms of allowing them to kind of access these craft and engage with them. And they also want to know as well why the phenomena is interested in them. Remember that one of the missions of the CIA is to actually find out the intent and anything they can about a foreign actor, whether it be an adversary country, whether it be Australia, Germany, or an ally, or anything like that, or whether it be something else, in terms of the non-human intelligence. That's its task, and I believe it's doing its job when it comes to this as well. So yeah, but that may also adversely be impacting lives as well. But I think they're carrying out the same mission here in terms of trying to find out the intent. They're trying to find these answers. What do they want from us? Things like that.
Is that the biggest question?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's a really big question, and people are still looking for answers. What do they want from us? Why have we been through this?
And that's what Davis and Putoff said. I mean, these guys are kind of really involved in the physical science, but their hypothesis of, I should say, they're hypothesizing about why they're here, what they might think of us, how they would interpret things we do and don't do, are very, very interesting. I thought that was one of the most interesting parts of the film. And I'll tell you, I'm going to play this video, Chris. You know what? Let me play this video. Let's react to that. And then I want to ask you, and then we'll go to Debs and Bia, but I want to ask you what part, because you basically know most everything that was in that film already, but there had to be something in there that had a little twinge on your brain when you heard it, or hearing them actually say it, that freaked you out. But let's look at this video and see if we can find any value in this whatsoever. Or if maybe I was just drinking too much that night.
Look, here it is. This is the source of light that always finds
Can you guys hear it?
Look at this.
Yes?
It keeps finding me
Hello?
everywhere.
Can hear it.
Good.
Yep.
It stands right there and it just starts to flash. Watch. Watch this. It's really, really, really bright. It's like either shining a spotlight, it looks like a flashlight in the sky, and there is another orb up there. You see it? Right there. So there's usually another drone or spacecraft or whatever the heck that is that's next to it. I don't know, it's like they're feeding off of each other. Okay, I got the sprinklers. Here we are. Sprinklers are here.
So she's
Okay,
giving
you
some
see it?
context.
You see how it goes? See how it goes?
Watch this.
And then it becomes a spacecraft or aircraft or whatever you want to call it, UAP. It transforms into a craft. Right in front of my eyes. Can't make this up. And there it goes. It's off. It's off. I just got drenched for being a little drone hunter, and the sprinklers are on here at the golf course. Okay. I just want to document this because I've contacted the police, I've contacted the news. They're not really taking this serious. These are not being, they're not being seen on radar. They're obviously not typical drones. Okay, I don't think drones can do that. Shine these big spotlights in the middle of the sky and then touch with another orb and then take flight like that. It feels like it has an energy source of some kind. It also feels like it has some kind of cloaking. It looks like an airplane now.
So watch when she zooms
I'm gonna
in.
try to catch it. Okay, here we go. That was that light. That's the same one. It looks like an airplane and it sounds like an airplane. But it all started out as like a big ball of light. Okay, this is live. I'm live streaming this, Facebook. So people don't say that I'm a conspiracy theorist. All right, let's see if we find something else up here. There's another one over here. There we go. Here we go. Bam. Okay, I'm gonna get wet again. This is the triangular one. This is the one that has 4 lights, and I'm gonna get drenched again.
Thank you for finding that much, Sarah. That is really awesome. She had a little bit more than that, I think, previously, and she was able to zoom in because it happened like 3 or 4 times. But the thing is it starts out as an orb, and then it kind of turned into an airplane. So, Chris, take it away, and then we can just go around the horn with this one. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sarah.
I'd love again, Marek, just to see that video because he could have a look at the times, you can have a look at the flight path, so you can see is that really, an aircraft. All I would say is that I lived near when I lived in London, I would see the planes going to Heathrow Airport, and sometimes they would appear as a very, very bright light when they are coming up ahead, and
Sure.
all of a sudden when they turn sideways, you can kind of like see them, and you can see all the lights and stuff like that. So they come up like this way, very, very bright, and then when they're coming banking into the airport, you can kind of like see the other lights. But I'm not saying that is what it is, but that I've experienced that. But then again, this witness, would have seen such things before. Like if I had seen something that I'd never seen before, despite my experience of seeing similar things going to Heathrow Airport, I would capture that on camera. So one would think that this lady would know what that looked like as well, and she would know what was normal. So that, I'm on. Yeah, I really don't know what to think about it. It's a tough one. I'm on the sidelines.
Money Nathan, did that strike you in any sort of a way?
I kind of echo Chris here. It's hard to. I find it interesting that she had either seen them so often that she knew. She seemed to know exactly what it was going to do. That was kind of weird to me. She was like, and now it's going to do this, and now it's going to do this, and over here's a triangle. It seemed like really precise narration. So that was certainly curious. Yeah, I don't know. I hate to say it. I'm very I don't want to say cynical, but I'm highly skeptical of any videos now. I
Yeah,
take
that's
videos
fair.
don't sway me very much anymore.
It's fair.
I think I need to see it with my own eyes, and even then, sometimes you can't believe your own eyes, right?
Well, it maybe not. Like it depends on what your eyes are trained to see and
true.
understand. And so there's that could be part of it as well. Or if we get, some source like we did with the Tic Tac and all that said, okay, this has been confirmed because, Lou confirmed that they had multiple sources of data that we didn't see that confirmed the Tic Tac. And then Dave Grush said the exact same thing. So then I can look at the video and you and I can look at it and go, okay, yeah, that sounds legit. Debs, did you have any thoughts on what you just saw, or are we all kind of just like, yeah, we don't know what it was? And
Well,
then go ahead.
I have mixed thoughts. I
What's
really
that?
that when people took videos that they studied the camera, because there were times when I wasn't sure if it was the movement of her phone or it was the object. If they could have a reference point in the video so you can see the size that we're talking about and distance, like there are people who can calculate that with a good reference point. um, and just like stay still, like we don't need the audio necessarily. So I think those things would help in the future for people who are trying to film these things. But I have a woo kind of response, and I know we haven't used that word in a while, but it I feel like when a human being sees something that is not right to them, they get a different feeling about it, and it sounded like she had that feeling. And I have seen an orb that did a right angle over my house, and I had that feeling then. But I've also seen planes that did really weird things, and I did not have that feeling. I've seen that effect. The plane looks like it's not moving at all in the sky, and I did not have that weird feeling. I was like, oh, okay, it's a weird psychological effect. So I think if you get a sense that something is off, that's what you should pay attention to.
Yes. And as it turns out, our new mod, Shock and Horror, got us a longer video to look at. So if you guys want to see, if you want to scroll through, we can. And I also don't want to waste the time, but if there's something that we can get out of it, it's up to you. It's up to the panel.
I'm just trying to find something that there's an experience that I had before in terms of like a plane, a really weird plane. When I lived in Tilehurst, which is part of Reading in Berkshire, we had a really weird event that happened there. And we were used to Concorde going over and whatnot, so we were used to like hearing like really loud aviation. And I was in my bedroom, and I remember hearing this really loud, deafening sound. I was like, "What on earth is that?" And I looked out my window, and there was like what looked like a passenger plane, really, really low with smoke coming out. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's gonna crash!"
Yeah.
And I'm just looking on the news websites and things like, "Gosh, there's gonna be a reported plane crash over the UK." Nothing ever happened. Nothing transpired. And then the next day, on the local newspapers, it was everywhere. Everyone had seen this plane, and Heathrow Airport basically said they were not aware of anything at the time, what it could have been. And I thought, that's really strange. I can show you the news articles. I try to find it. Sorry.
Yeah. No, by all means. I'm kind of swiping through this thing to see if there's something that can change our attitude. I see where she's zeroed in one now at about 6 minutes. Yeah, this one right here. Let me put this up there for you guys.
I just want to say,
please go ahead, ma'am.
Need AI videos of UFOs. I can very quickly make you a ton of them that look really cool. And they can put them in any location. Just saying, like, so that is a reason that we cannot video.
That's fair.
This is a light source, and you will see how in real time it morphs into a craft. I kid you not. Now it's moving, so I gotta.
So this right here to me doesn't look like
moving.
an aircraft.
I'm gonna try to stand
but
as
I'm
still
not
as
sure.
possible. The smaller craft moved. I believe the smaller craft is a triangular craft, and the larger one is the one that looks like a plane. There's no the greater plantation area. Look how it takes flight. That one takes flight in the shape of an airplane. That one takes flight and eventually, well, it's still looking like an orb. Okay, so let's see how big this one gets. I believe this has some kind of technology that it projects some kind of holographic image of an airplane. I know I sound crazy, but I've seen these now for 5 days. 5 days.
That's
they
pretty
have gone
freaky,
everywhere.
man.
They're everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, they show up. So they're not just in plantation. Regular drones do that. Look at how fast that's going. That's going freaking crazy fast.
I don't know.
I try to contact the FBI.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on it just because I don't think you guys find it all that compelling. But it is, I will watch it myself, Sarah, because I'm interested to watch the whole thing again. Chris, so what struck you about the movie Age of Disclosure? If you guys in the chat, if you've not seen a Age of Disclosure, I recommend you see it. It's, I think Nathan and Exo are reporting it's the most popular purchase video of, I don't know, in Amazon Prime history.
It was the #1 purchase documentary on Prime Video.
Prime Video. There you go. Chris, what struck you? What made you say, wow? Was it the one where those frogmen are kind of like pulling up that missile and then something comes up and it was like, wait, don't take that?
Yeah. No, I first want to say that I do find it. I think what you just showed in that video, that is really important, you know, and you've seen it before as well. The military captured footage that we got released through the Daily Mail of one of the drones over Lakenheath did appear to look like a kind of like aircraft as well. But, you know, from what I'm told, it was one of the drones.
Yeah.
So these things can look weird, and we know that UAP can mimic as well. So this is all part of the game, you know. They do seem to conceal themselves. So, but when it came to the Age of Disclosure, I just found the most interesting thing, James Clapper, and you know him saying that it was a program, U.S. Air Force program, monitoring UAP or UFOs over kind of like installations, including Area 51. Because I contacted the U.S. Air Force when I found out about that, and they were unable to deny the allegations, which is really, really telling. This wasn't coming from the Arrow, this wasn't coming from Susan Goff, this is coming straight from the US Air Force. They can't deny it. They can't say James Clapper is wrong. They can't say it. He's too big. He knows what he's talking about. He's probably got the receipts to back it up as well.
Yeah, and I forgot he was an Air Force general. I didn't realize that during his career because I only knew him as like civilian, you know, cabinet official. But wow. How about, you know what? I think this is something interesting for the panel. Nathan, what was the most interesting thing for you that was in that film that kind of blew your mind?
And the one that jumped out at me right away was when I think it was Jay Stratton was talking about he was giving a brief to Steve Mnuchin from the Treasury Department, and Mnuchin had said to him, do you know why I asked you for this briefing? And he said, I'm not really sure. And Mnuchin says, because I want to know what would be the societal impact on the markets if we were to make this kind of announcement. That's a paraphrase. But that was, I'd never heard that before. That certainly gave some credence to this notion that elements within the executive branch at the time were considering coming forward with something. So very, very curious. And then, you know, I think really Stratton generally, anything Jay's saying, like I'm very curious to hear what he has to say because he's been somewhat enigmatic publicly. And so I'm looking forward to his book and you know, more from him and his side of the story, particularly like the stranger elements, the paranormal kind of components that interacted with his family. So there's a lot left to chew on there that I think we haven't gotten yet. So.
Can I tell everybody in the panel something? I think I'm the only one that's heard this because I don't think any of you have bought or rented American Sasquatch yet. Am I correct in that? Okay, so this is David Paulides' new movie, and it's basically where but guess what? He goes to visit our old friend and Chris's old friend, Colm Kelleher. And guess what Colm Kelleher talked about, Chris? Bigfoot on the ranch. We have never heard them talk about, and Debs and I have talked about this. They have never talked about Bigfoot on the ranch, and he did an interview about Bigfoot on the ranch. How about that, man?
I need to talk to Colm about that. Wow, something that kind of like blew my mind as well. Dark Journo said this, and I spoke to some people, and they kind of like said, yes, this does chime. And it's that apparently as part of the reverse engineering programs, like engineers like enter the craft and all of a sudden weird stuff will start happening. Like they'll start to see dead relatives and stuff like that. all this paranormal stuff will start to happen when they enter the craft. Sometimes I think that's kind of like strange, you know.
That is really cool. So it's almost Christmas. Hey, look who's here. Keith Taylor. What's going on? Under Sheriff of Suffolk County in New York. Oh man, Keith's titles. How long does it take? Wouldn't it take us like a minute and a half to say Keith's titles, Nathan?
At least, right?
Yeah, PhD, former NYPD SWAT, UAP researcher. I can't
Credentialed.
remember all. He's a credentialed guy, and he loves some UAPs. He got us the Tedesco brothers on here, Chris. He did.
Keith is wonderful. You know, the guy has such a soothing voice as well, you know? Like,
Yes.
I can just let him talk and talk. I'm like, no, please go on.
He could be
Keep
your
talking.
psychologist. Lay back, Chris. Have a pillow. Just tell me your problems.
Exactly.
I love it, man. Keith Taylor. All right, let me pass it on to Debs and then Boston Bia.
Yeah, I think I appreciated the most that it summarized so many things that we already knew and sort of brought people up to date. That was sort of the impact I think it had. But unfortunately for me, it wasn't exactly like, oh, this is new, you know, like, or something stood out that was unexpected. But I think for people who have less knowledge of this topic, it definitely will be new for them. But one thing that also did spark is just my thoughts on reverse engineering again. And it's so coincidental, but like right after I saw that, I heard someone mention access denial systems. And that's just another example of something that sounds like it's been reverse engineered. So we could talk about that when I get to my next question for Chris.
Okay. Boston Bia.
All right. Well, thanks for not forgetting me this time.
Ouch. Ouch, Nathan.
You know I'm gonna pick on you.
I just got an open face,
last time.
an open-handed
Yes.
slap.
I can't help you, bro.
Listen, I gotta keep it real. No, what I thought that was interesting to me. Obviously the high level people that spoke on this documentary, right? And also Senator Rubio, because I just think it just gave it, you know, just somebody that's not necessarily involved with those types of operations, just somebody that's, you know, a senator speaking on it. I just gave it some credibility.
Basically, you're asking them, are you asking
I'm not
basically?
asking. No.
Okay, you're making a statement. Okay.
Because we're talking about the age of disclosure. Oh my Lord.
I agree with you.
Got it.
Yeah, he has a lot of gravitas, and he brought a lot of
Yes.
gravitas to the film.
Right.
Yeah, he's
DJ,
a cabinet
you sit down.
official.
Me and
now.
Nathan got this. We know what he knows what I was answering.
Okay, fine. And thank you. We got K9 Mind to help here. Is one of our friends from Australia in this the space here. Bigfoot and UFOs. So, Chris, yeah, that would be my Christmas gift. Is if you could somehow dig into and get somebody at the Department of the Interior to talk about Bigfoot. I know you're not going to take on that task, but I would love that.
I want to talk to Colm Kelleher now. I want to talk to him.
Yeah. So if you talk to him, can you find out if he knows, anybody from a programmatic standpoint that you could talk to?
I think it's definitely of interest, and that
I
need
would
to
be
find out
something
more about that.
Yeah. Do you have since you're so involved in this UFO topic, do you have a thought on why? Because now you know a lot. You know more about people in the Pentagon than most of us. I mean, you've talked to more people than most of us. You've emailed with them, etc. Do you have a sense of why the government might want to cover up something like Bigfoot?
Whew. I think to answer that question, it's just kind of like I'd need a firm basis to kind of like understand what it is, like in my mind, I'm coming at this from a complete outsider's perspective, but from my mind, it could be anything from kind of an ancestor to humans, could be something that's very, very spiritual in nature, something to do with consciousness. And there've been other suggestions as well that, it could be part of the non-human intelligence, that something is just to throw you off there, to scare you away, because they want something out, they want to do something else at that location. I don't know, but, I would say that, these woods, they seem very, very spiritual. Go back to Secret Machines, the woods, the forests seem very, very magical, and they seem to have something about them. But yeah, when you speak to certain people who've been involved with UAP stuff, they're completely woo. And I think to myself, like, you're highly intelligent, you've entered this from nuts and bolts, and something has turned you that way. I want to understand more, and I think this is kind of like a bigger question in terms of like, what is reality? It speaks to something else, and I'm very interested in that. Very interested.
I can tell you that David Paulides, who's written that Missing 411 book series, which I believe is now up to like 13 books, and now this is his, I want to say his fourth or fifth movie. But American Sasquatch just came out, after Age of Disclosure. So within the last week or so, American Sasquatch came out on Amazon Prime, and it's another pay-for one. But what he's trying to say, and the reason that I'm bringing it up in this forum, is not only to get your perspective, Chris, because you're a prolific, writer and journalist on the subject, is that Dave has been a MUFON investigator for 25 years. So he did a movie called Missing 411, The UFO Connection, where he believes that the only rational explanation for some of these hunters that have gone missing is abduction. And so with the American Sasquatch, it's why are there orbs why are people seeing orbs in the woods co-located with Sasquatch? Why do their eyes glow? Like night vision goggles. How do they emit light? So he brings up a lot of aspects of paranormality, plus those guys like the Navajo Rangers from Skinwalker Ranch. I know you're familiar with John Dover and Stan Milbrook, and we had them on the show. At least we had John twice and both of them once, and they said they're following the tracks, and boom, it's just gone. Where did it go? We're in the middle of an open space. Where did a 21-inch footprint with a 5 to 6 foot stride that just ended? So that's what Dave's movie's about. So it might be interesting for you to see it, because he thinks that there is absolutely a paranormality. People have seen them literally like disappear, like physically disappear in front of them. We've talked about that, Bia. Some of them saw them like a whole being and it just collapsed into something and shot away. Really, really strange things. One of them saw that what she saw was a black little creature, and then when it ran away, it looked like Predator. Predator is sort of translucent. So that's why I'm bringing it up. And that's why I think, man, if we could find somebody in government that could talk about it, is there a connection? Is there not a connection? That kind of thing. So sorry for that long diatribe.
No, absolutely. I might give it a go. Speak to someone from the interior. Yeah. Maybe do they record how many sightings of like Sasquatch there have been? They record that, do they?
Yeah, there's a couple sites. One of them is called the BFRO, created by Matt Moneymaker. You remember him from Finding Bigfoot, the attorney. And he tells his folks not to record. If there's a measure of paranormality, then don't record that sighting. I know Deb knows this. I think some people on the panel probably know this. And now there's a new guy with the Bigfoot Mapping Project by Scott. I have his name in my phone. He's like almost from my hometown. He's from very close to my hometown. He's from Houston, and he's a GIS major, and he also has a database, but there are tens of thousands of reports, and they have them by state. But BFRO sort of ignores if there's paranormality. They might not release it to the public, even though their research group can see it. And I think Scott Tompkins, I think his name is, he shows everything. So yeah, so there's those databases, and I recommend, if you can, contact Calm, and then also American Sasquatch, and watch that and see what you think about it, about
Sure.
the parallels. Okay.
Absolutely. I'll see if I can find anything.
All right, I'll shut up now. Boston Bia, go with your question. We'll go in reverse order. I'll be right back.
He just threw me off. I didn't even know he didn't give a subject. He just said, go with what question.
You got this. You got this.
I want to know, do you ever plan on visiting Boston in Lincolnshire? Is that something that like people from the Boston area do? Like, actually, like I've seen all these place names in New England. Let's go to the English equivalent. I'd love to know that.
No. I'd like to get over to Paris first. That's where I want to go next. But
Cool.
but you know what I thought was interesting when it talked about the bubble around the orbs, which explains so much that I didn't realize that they, in the age of disclosure, how when they take pictures of the orbs, how there's like a bubble around it, and that's why sometimes you kind of see things that are, and then you don't know if that's like a time warp or something. I found that to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. My good friend Matt Ford has a really, really good theory when it comes to that. I really want to tell you what that theory is, and it's so interesting. But if I do that, I'll spoil it for him, and I want him to kind of like reveal that theory. But it's really interesting. You've got this like time warp bubble and stuff, and and you also you got kind of like space distortion as well. Like they'll enter like a smaller object, and it appears to be like the size of a football stadium. I find that so interesting. Like how do they make that happen? What kind of like technology can we not even fathom yet that they've done? And I think it's also to do with the understanding about consciousness and how we see space and time and things like that. Going into the quantum realms and stuff like that. And it's just all like overwhelming. It really, really is overwhelming. It's just kind of like reality is so subjective, isn't it? Really, and I remember like reading a lot of Robert Lanza when I was younger, who's come up with a thing called like biocentrism, that kind of like consciousness is key to everything in terms of like physics and stuff like that. That you have to have an observer. I'm really interested in that stuff. And the mind boggles really, and maybe soon we can get onto that topic in terms of in my reporting, and I can go straight back to my my kind of like interact or engagement with Robert Lanza's material. But there's some really, really good stuff from Robert Lanza. I'd definitely recommend anyone interested in consciousness kind of like going onto YouTube and listening to some Robert Lanza speeches. And there's someone else that he's worked with as well called Bob Berman, and he did a fantastic kind of like speech to a bunch of like college kids, and they all started laughing at him. They're not taking him seriously, and this is like 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And you kind of like think about what he's saying now and how well it's staged in terms of what our understanding kind of like of reality and consciousness is now. It's really good. I'll have to post it to you. Sorry.
Deb, you're up.
Discussion about something else that came up in Age of Disclosure about how movies have influenced our view, but it may also be that our view has influenced movies. Like Spielberg does not strike me as someone who's working for the CIA, but he keeps putting out these movies, and another one will be coming soon. So it tends to be very close to act. So I think that our consciousness may be trying to tell us a story too. And I did want to jump out of my seat and say, yes, the CIA does do that when they talked about that. but okay, so my question is kind of a quick one and everyone can be a part of this. I just want everyone to raise their hand if they think the following technology could be reverse engineered. You ready? Okay. Right now, universities are doing experiments about controlling things with brain waves. reverse engineered or not? You think so?
Oh, boy, that's a tough one. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised, or I'm not opposed to the idea.
So
Okay.
you're saying that the university studying this, they got the idea from non-human intelligence, is what you're
Yeah.
saying? Okay.
You think it could be reverse engineer oriented? And by the way, Chris and I have talked about how universities also hide things for the government and work with the government many times. And I keep saying to people to look at universities as well. Okay, so we'll try the next one. How about night vision? Maybe.
It's so hard to say because like it's I don't want to say no entirely, but a lot of what universities study, they're like it's sort of that biomimicry, right? So they're trying to think of, they're taking ideas they see in nature that other creatures can do, and they're trying to enable that capacity in human beings, right? So night vision is kind of an example of that.
How about updated cloaking technology, which is really advanced now?
I think perhaps. I mean, it's so difficult to tell because we've got like the likes of InQtel kind of like dropping new technology to help American companies dominate the world of tech and stuff, and that's really interesting. And I'd also just kind of like point out as well that I think your questions are really relevant because when you
There
think
are.
about kind of like these last 100 or so years, how much, and especially after World War II, how much technology just kind of like has surpassed anything that ever came before. Like my great grandparents and a lot of your great grandparents, the fact that we just have bread on the table and stuff like that would be a miracle to them, and what technology we've got now and how did we get here, how did we get here where we are right now, surrounded by all these gadgets and just stuff that other people just take for granted. It's
I mean, you almost
Yeah.
put cell phones, microwaves, and TVs in one group for the next one.
Did you say telephones, microwaves, and TVs?
Yep, they're all using the electromagnetic spectrum.
Man, this is a really, what's so great about this question, Deb, is that none of us can answer it, but they're great talking points.
Okay, so
It's great.
I think
I was thinking about the one you said about cloaking, and I'm trying to think of how do you cloak. So I'm thinking about, we would have to know sort of the biology of the eye, how the rods and cones work, and then see if sort of light could be projected in some way so that the eye is unable to perceive. So it's a very, very interesting question. I'm having trouble at this point with the Star Trek aspect of it, the Romulan cloaking device, if you will, what people have alleged that we can do. At this point, I'm having now electronic cloaking has worked. It's been around for many, many years. I've flown on aircraft that had some measure of electronic cloaking, but all that's going to do is to fool radar and to fool some weapon. And when I say fool, I don't mean foolproof. I mean to distort and sort of appear. So that's been around for a long time. But as far as something visually disappearing from sight, I would have to talk to if we could get Dr. Putoff, or I can finally get Eric Davis on here, because I started a dialogue with him on LinkedIn. That would be a question that I would ask him.
Yeah,
I'll endeavor to try to get him on here. What do you guys got? Continue on, Debs, if there's more. And Julie's saying yes. She's raising her hand. So.
Yeah, certainly more. And I'll give a couple more, but I think the point I'm saying is that it is such an excessive amount of technology that we in sci-fi have talked about, which is why I thought of that consciousness connection too. Like, are we talking about something that we're imagining, or is this some like information that we're getting? Does that make sense?
Yes, chicken or egg.
Right, exactly. That is exactly it, DJ. What is first? Because if you look back just, I don't know, 100 years, that is a huge difference. Okay, like look at AI, look at computers, look at airplanes, look at how fast they're going. Look at it's just crazy. But I heard the question earlier about how people are working together, and the Aero car had to be mentioned because that was a UK, Canadian, and US project. So let's say Aero car. That'll be the last one I'll ask for now. We know some are obvious, like directed energy weapons.
Yeah, I don't know what that technology was purported to be, so it's that one would be hard for me to say. I had another one in my mind and I lost it, so I'm gonna have to try to get it back. But go ahead, rest of the team. What do you think?
Well, I mean, Deb gets me thinking about the capability of human beings when we have the ability to connect and share knowledge with one another, right? So the 20th century arguably brought a degree of connectivity to different people, different thinkers, different universities, a kind of connectivity that didn't exist in centuries before it. And so once you had that ability to share knowledge, and you think about the war effort itself, right? So the alliance of different nations to have to work together to combat an enemy force and share their knowledge, share their intelligence, work together on common problems, like that's the kind of stuff that spawned the many of these innovations. And so we've really seen an acceleration of that. And the metaphor that comes to mind for me, of course, is the Tower of Babel, right? So you have this ability for humans to really advance ourselves if we can just connect with one another, if we can put our differences aside and share knowledge, share a discovery, like we can rapidly accelerate our capabilities. But our differences and our petty squabbles really get in the way of our ability to advance, right? So the more peaceful the world has become, the more advancements we seemingly have unlocked. I think that there's got to be something to that. There's got to be a correlation there.
I just want to answer Deb's chicken and egg thing. I don't think, given what Gene Roddenberry dreamed out about in the very early 60s, like 62, when he was writing Star Trek, and then what Steven Spielberg dreamt in the 70s and 80s, I don't think that we could rule out that these guys have dreamt things that they were not read into by a government official, even though we know about sort of what's Richard Dolan's partner's name, the guy who was on that show with George Knapp and now Bryce. Yeah, exactly. What's his last name? Bryce Zabel. Okay. So we know that a government official contacted those guys and came to their party and wrote something on a napkin and stuff like that. But I would say overall, I think that there is some incredible imagination that's gone on without knowing that we had maybe captured technologies like that craft captured in Magenta, Italy in the 30s, et cetera. So I think that we have to be open to the possibility that these are just George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and Gene Roddenberry were incredibly creative guys that could, dream up things that now some of them are possible. The iPhone is more advanced than the communicator that they had on the Starship Enterprise. So,
but DJ, what about
yes,
if that
ma'am.
was by design to kind of all along feed us this information? Because, like, for instance, when you asked me what I thought of what was the biggest thing I got from there, I was kind of like, I'm really not surprised. And maybe why? Because I've been watching sci-fi for 25 years. And maybe now at this point, something like watching this documentary didn't really hit me too hard because I feel like I can imagine all these things being there. So maybe this is by design. So maybe when we do find out, our minds are already like adjusted to the shock of it. Just a thought.
So I think I might have to ask Deb to restate her question, but I think what she was asking is were you saying, Deb, did the government give these ideas to these film creators, or did the film creators give the ideas to us? I might have your question all wrong.
I think my question is mostly, did we get this information in another way, not related to the government, that influenced our media? And in addition to that, do we have technology that we were, well, not necessarily given, that we have gotten that was not originally from humans?
So, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Was this communicated to us by a non-human intelligence and put in our minds, which then could have not only affected us, but affected those guys who created that content. So that is a great question now that we've dug into it. And we can get Chris's on that, but I want to make sure I get this question answered for K9. How long have they been reverse engineering, Chris?
I think ever since Magenta, I think that was a joint effort between, well, I believe, just in terms of my opinion from the sources, and I think it's a very, very interesting theory that's been made. Well, it's my theory, but it's based on what I've been provided by sources with insight into this, in terms that so the story is that Magenta craft was being reverse engineered by the Germans and the Italians, and the allegation is they made contact with a faction of Nordics, and they had help in doing so. And the German craft was being tested in Spain, not Germany, keep it safe. And after the war, that craft went to Argentina. And meanwhile, when the Americans allegedly captured it, they also brought over some of the people who were working on the reverse engineering from Italy and Germany. And then they started working on their own craft. And the story is, it's mad. It's very, very mad. Is that basically, as part of this, these Nordic beings, they basically said, look, you need to pilot these with some clones that usually pilot these crafts. So yeah, and the two craft, the German variant from Argentina and the one that the Americans were working on, which was based at Wright-Patterson Field, allegedly had a dogfight, and that was the Roswell crash. That's
I don't buy
a crazy story, but
yeah,
it's just kind of like, with my insight, when I know where I know where that's come from, it's just like, gosh, got to take that seriously all of a sudden, you know.
I heard
crazy,
it from.
I know.
I heard it from a 3-letter agency source. Not only don't I buy it, but those folks that were in Age of Disclosure also said that no, that was a genuine crash. And when you listen to the testimony of the people that were there from the 90s, that's not what they saw. The beings were not what they saw that they captured, and the metal was extraordinary. And I don't think some of those metallurgical properties probably could not have been made on Earth at that time. In fact, Gary Nolan has basically alluded to that with the pieces that he has. And I don't know if that's the same one they're folding up on the table and it's unfolding and you couldn't burn it in the whole 9 yards. I you know, because that technology would have made it into aircraft if people knew how to make that metal back then.
But am I understanding you, Chris, to say that we didn't build them, that these were crashes that we then,
Correct, yeah, reverse engineering with help.
Right. So, but they weren't our materials; they were the crashed vehicles that were just repaired in a way with the help of the Nordics, and then
But
just
then
clarify that point.
But what does that do to those bodies? Because then, when we were told by Richard Doty that they had captured that they captured that body that they called Eben, who lived to 52, and then the same thing has been corroborated in Age of Disclosure, actually by multiple sources.
Yeah, well, the allegation is that these are kind of like clones. You know, it's been said by people before that the Greys just kind of like clones, like worker bees, and not that they're not advanced themselves, but I don't know. That's the information I've got, and I just think it's a really interesting kind of theory.
I mean, it gets to the point, Chris. You've reported on this before, and this is, and David Grush has mentioned this notion of agreements between governments and factions of NHI, and I think people maybe underestimate the capability that might flow from agreements, right? I mean, it's sort of, if they're saying here, like, we're going to help you advance, we're going to give you technology, I mean, there's a lot on the table at that point that would be prior to that outside the reach of our capability, but then all of a sudden would be within our capability and would be potentially quote unquote ours, even though, our science didn't produce it, right? So it broadens the field of the possible pretty quickly, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the other intelligence services try to anthropomorphize everything about this so that we can think, oh, we have this, we can do this, we built this, we reverse engineered this. Someone told Ross Coulthart that the Tic Tac was a Lockheed product. He backed way off that initial statement down to, oh, well, they operated it. So they're gonna that when you're dealing with these type of sources, they're going to try to anthropomorphize this as much as possible because their goal is for you to believe that we are in control. And
but that's not what I'm saying, though. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm not saying we're in control. I'm saying that if agreements have occurred,
yeah,
it's a knowledge share. It's just that if an advanced race says, hey, we're going to give you all of this scientific knowledge, and we're going to give you the technology and the tools to build the craft, and you can build it. We're just going to teach you how to do it. It's like the scene from Star Trek where Scotty built, put punches and stuff in the computer and builds these see-through aluminum or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like that factory built the see-through aluminum. He just gave them the code to be able to do it. So it's again, I'll say what I said before. It opens up the realm of the possible pretty broadly. I mean, everything whatever you could imagine basically becomes possible at that point, which I find to be, I mean, it's a fun speculative exercise, but at the same time be incredibly frustrating because it can be really just whatever you want it to be, right? There's no end to the possibility space at that point.
Can I
Nathan, wait, one thing I just want to say, Nathan, we're on SharePoint with the Nordics. We just got to go to the Nordic tab on the left sidebar.
Exactly. They're just as frustrated with Microsoft Teams as the rest of us, just.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Debs.
The psychology of the idea of how much help we're much not. And I'm one of those things that people are afraid of disclosure because of. And even here, people are humans, obviously, we're thinking of these things, but what if the answer is some of those things we do not think of?
We're hearing like every third word. This is killing me. And Deb has very important things to say. Did you guys get what she was saying? No? All right, Deb, let's try again. Tell everyone in the house to get off the internet except you.
I wish I could do that.
Okay.
Maybe just go a little more slowly. You might get it through. Yeah.
I was saying that the psychology of it is interesting to me, that this might be one of the reasons people are afraid of disclosure.
Is why?
Because they don't want to admit that humans are not the inventor of everything that we do.
Well, yeah, there's no question in my mind. There's no question in my mind. And I mean, this could go to like, getting into Chris to talk about Calvine. I mean, and we're at like midnight 30 with Chris. So we got to start thinking about wrapping it up so he can go to bed. And we'll have to invite him back again because Chris, like, I still got like half a dozen questions for you. But let's go around the room though. Chris, do you have anything to say about what you've heard over the last 5 minutes other than you guys all need to just take a rain check? No. What have you heard?
No. I just point out in terms of like my story is that it's very difficult. You basically, you listen to sources, you try to get one source to back up another, especially if the sources aren't aware of each other. You try to get the same story twice, basically, to make sure that information can become more credible. You have relationships to those sources and you put weight in them based on the information they provided you before. It's very, very difficult. You do a lot of weighing up, in terms of like, do I report this? Do I think this has credibility? And, I think, I'm not saying I'm always going to get it right, but I think my track record's good. But then again, saying my track record's good, like I remember watching the world. Yeah, this is a crazy analogy here, but I watched The World at War, and see kind of like how France fell to Germany in World War II. And one of the, I believe he was one of the generals, French generals, was basically saying that during World War One, we thought we were invincible and we thought that we're the greatest army in the world. There's nothing more dangerous than a victory. That's one of the most dangerous things, because then you go in with overconfidence and you think you're invincible. And that's kind of like was the thinking of the French. It just, made them arrogant, and they couldn't perceive that they could do anything wrong. And that's what I'm very, very keen to avoid as a journalist. I'm keen to avoid the trap where I think, oh, wow, I got this story right. I got this story right. Boom, I'm on fire. I'm going to get everything right now. And then that kind of like sense of confidence and arrogance, would lead me then just to kind of like become complacent, let's say, believe everything I hear now. I think people can fall into that trap. So I think that's really, really important that you raise that, and at the end of the day, I hope one day, UAP stories is very, very difficult to verify, especially when you're talking about classified things. And we'll have to see one day, how much of the stuff I've reported has turned out to be correct.
All of it.
How much has been incorrect. And it's a really tough gig, it's a really tough gig, and always going to upset someone, when you say, oh, but I think some of them are Chinese, and so many people just kind of like want these things to just kind of like be non-human, and it's horrible, and you're going to upset someone,
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things going on here. I have one question I want to ask you, and then we can get into that real quick in a rapid fire thing so we can get you out of here. Do you think that them reverse engineering that craft in Argentina had anything to do with the birth of Leo Messi and Diego Maradona?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's otherworldly. Yeah.
It's strange though. You go onto Google Maps, you look at one of the German villages there. It's kind of like you look at other like settlements nearby, and it's like very, very Argentinian. All of a sudden, you go onto Google Map and one of the German settlements. It's like you're being transported to Europe. It's crazy.
To Bavaria. It is freaky.
Bavaria, yeah.
So there's two things I want to say. The one thing is that the amount of people who have knowledge on these programs, they talked about MJ12 might be like MJ27 now. And so there's these things called rules of engagement. And there's things they're like read files that you could share back and forth on a SharePoint, like what Nathan's going to get going with the Nordics. So that way we can have a daily contact with them. But the idea behind this is that if these programs have not where they're sharing the compartment, but where there's some rules of engagement, there's read files of what they want to put out, it is quite conceivable that if anyone who is part of one of these programs that is talking to people who are then talking to journalists like yourself, like Ross Coulthart, etc., they're going to give you the information that they want to give you to shape the public's opinion. They're probably not going to tell you the truth. I'm just saying that's because when David Grush says there's been a very sophisticated disinformation campaign waged against the American people for the last 80 years, it's very unethical. When he says that, that's what he's talking about. Not just us, but you guys too. So they're going to say this is the kind of narrative. And I'm not saying that anything is true or false. I don't know. I'm just I don't know. I can tell you, I think the Patty in the Patterson Gimlin film's real. I can tell you Tic Tac's real based on my feeling. And I could tell you the Area 51 video with the little alien guy from Victor is real. And I could tell you, I think Dan Sherman's real. That's just my feeling. I can't tell you I know this is true. I can't. So I'm not saying that what you're saying isn't true, but I will tell you that they're going to try to shape your opinion and your reporting. And there's a very small group of people that can agree on the kind of information that they want to put out through a first or second or third party.
Yeah. And this is why you've got to go through it with multiple sources, ones that are that appear to be disconnected, that don't know each other.
Right.
And you build relations with these sources as well. And like, if they're not one of these people that you do feel, is spreading disinformation, you just got to make a judgment call on it. It's really,
all you
really
can do.
tough. It's really tough. It's a toss up sometimes, and it's a tough place to be. It's a really, really tough place to be.
I don't envy you. I don't want your job.
When I first reported on the involvement of the National Underwater Reconnaissance Office, when I first reported on the involvement of the Directorate of Science and Technology, those are really, really out there, and I got attacked for that as well. People just saying this is BS and stuff, and then you watch Age Disclosure, it's mentioned Directorate of Science and Technology and the involvement of its director or deputy directors, and then you see the great work of UAP Gov and kind of like deep diving into the National Underwater Reconnaissance Office and stuff like that. And, you feel like, yeah, I got those ones right. That's really good, because like back when I reported those, I got so much heat for those, So that's a really nice feeling. It's but like I said, there's nothing more dangerous than a victory. So I'm not always going to get it right, and yeah, it's tough, really, really horrible. It's horrible sometimes, really horrible being in that position.
There isn't a journalist that we trust more than you, Chris. Just saying. So, and I mean that. I don't care if you're talking about George Knapp, Jeremy, Ross Coulthard. There is nobody I trust more than you. But Nathan, let's go with a closing round here so that we can get Chris to sleep.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you. And your name's not Christopher Blunt; it's Christopher Sharp. Stay sharp. Stay sharp. Always keep an eye on your sources, whether it's your Worcestershire sauce or your barbecue sauce or your honey mustard sauce. You check those sauces. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Chris. It always is. You're just really, really wonderful person, a humble guy, and I appreciate everything that you do for us and coming on the show and the reporting that you do. And I know you have a huge following and fan club, and well-deserved. And if you haven't followed his work, please do. Please check out liberationtimes.com. Jump on the Patreon, support this man. He's doing a great job. And I know there are more exciting and engaging articles on the way. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those kind words. I love this show. I think I've appeared on this show more than I've appeared on the other show. So yeah, I love it. And I've met with DJ twice as well. Yeah, had some great times together. So thank you. I hope to meet with all of you at some point.
Debs.
Yep, we're gonna need you to come back, Chris. Whether anytime. Yeah, whether it's that after that eminent disclosure that was hinted at or before, we'll definitely appreciate your words of wisdom and, of course, your company, because you're amazing. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And yeah, I'm going to bring my son on next time as well. My son,
Lincoln.
He's usually under the table for every show,
He is more than welcome to come on. Boston Bia.
Yes, thanks, Chris. Thanks, panel. I just want to say, definitely when you said it's really tough, it kind of made me feel like, you're carrying this burden of when to say things and when not to say. And can't imagine that it's easy, but thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much. It is horrible sometimes. Like when I reported this story today, I'm getting, I couldn't sleep last night because I'm getting some people just saying, look, you're going to have a bullseye on your head if you get this out. So then you have to find a way of rewording it and putting out another way. And it's horrible because you're thinking, gosh, is my life on the line? It's so thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's been lovely speaking to you as well. And if you ever do want to visit Boston in Lincolnshire, yeah, I'll come up with you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
From New England to England. But one thing, Chris, I wanted to reiterate this for our Karen Reed, our true crime audience, because people don't understand. I said this on the show, and when I said it, Bia was there, and people didn't really take it seriously. Threats against people's lives in UFO community are real. Can you just do, 30 seconds on that?
They are real. I'm aware of at least one staffer within the Senate who had helicopters buzzing his home and it received real threats. I'm aware that Tim Burchett was threatened as well, that they might put up another candidate to fight against him in the next election. I'm aware of whistleblowers whose lives have been destroyed, take their clearances, place them under investigation. Once they go for other jobs, they can't get the job for some reason, and it's like they've been blacklisted. And their whole lives are based on their security clearances. That's their bread and butter. That's what they've been trained to doing, working on these kind of things, these kind of systems they're working on. And it's heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking. And yeah, there are threats that go on. There are real threats, and
people have been killed. Like, I mean, David Grush and Elzano said people have been killed. So if you're listening out there in the Karen Reed community and you think, you know, the Twitter back and forth stuff or calling somebody's job, it can get really, really serious in other communities. So I really want you to think about that when you think about how you're going to treat others, because people have died in this community. And even what's our friend, the Air Force, the helicopter pilot, where they were nearly in a firefight with other contractors. Remember when they were going to recover that stuff? Jake Barber, that nearly resulted in a firefight in the Sierra Nevada mountains when they were contracted to go retrieve, let's say, pelican cases, essentially. So it can get really, really serious in the community. Chris, if you would, please just tell people where they can find you. I know the Daily Mail and your website, everything that Chris tells us will be in the show notes for YouTube and for the podcast. So please tell everybody.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So www.liberationtimes.com. That's my website where I publish my work. I also do work for the Daily Mail as a contributor. So sometimes I'll put articles out on there. And then you can find my thoughts on Patreon. I usually put kind of like updates on there in terms of how things are going. And then kind of like for my more day-to-day stuff, you can see me on X, which is Chris UK Sharp. So yeah, there's a whole load of places that you can find me, and then Instagram, which is mainly just family photos and stuff, and unrelated to UAP mainly.
This is the best source. Anybody that's watching us right now, this is the best source you're going to get on UAP news in the world. And he also has a Patreon, and that will be associated as well in the show notes. So on behalf of Boston Bia and Debs and Nathan, thank you so much, Christopher. We greatly appreciate your time, as always.
Thank you all. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to your audience. Cheers.
Peace out, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.